Hey guys, Kami Gunplay here. This time we're finally gonna take a look at a new kit, the high-grade Darilbalde from The Witch from Mercury. I initially wanted to do one of those ASMR videos, which is why this time I have a lot more footage than usual. Anyways, check this out. Anyways, that's enough of that. I kind of gave up halfway. It didn't really occur to me in the beginning that I would have to keep quiet the entire time, and my house is just not the quietest place, so probably not gonna do that again in a while. I also like watching videos and streams, while I build, so the whole ASMR thing is kind of, not great for my hobby experience, and at the end of the day, enjoying the hobby is probably more important than making trendy content. Plus, some of you have talked about liking my style of content since you can actually learn a thing or two, either from things I'm doing right or my mistakes. So I feel like I should probably keep the same format of videos going. Anyways, back to The Witch from Mercury. The show just recently ended. The way I think about the show is, it's kind of like me growing up, in that, both me and the show were supposed to be so much greater. I still like the show, but compared to how promising it looked in the beginning, it's probably not gonna go down as one of the more memorable series in the Gundam franchise, although it's still very solid. I'm gonna make a whole other rant video about it in the future. What it did give us are a bunch of great kits, this Darilbalde being one of the best ones, in my opinion. And sorry for the slower uploads these days. I recently got access to a CNC machine and a laser cutter, so I've been experimenting with those. So far, I'm just making simple bases for my Final Fantasy figures, but hopefully in the future, I can put them into greater diorama uses. Anyways, let's get to actually talking about the kit. These new G-Witch kits are great for snap builders. Bandai is getting really efficient at kit design. You're getting really good construction, great color separation with minimal amount of parts. But to be honest, as a painter, I kind of don't love it that much. The issues are a bit more apparent on the aerial, which I'll talk about in that video. The Darilbalde doesn't require as much work since all the seam lines are hidden pretty well and the body proportions are decent. But if I were to say to extend the legs a bit, my usual trick of adding plates to the joints just wouldn't work, since all the parts here are interlocked. I would have to saw the entire section in half and add heights throughout the parts, which I will be doing to the aerial. So again, be on the lookout for that one in the future. There's no real seam line on the kit that needs to be fixed, but the way they achieved that was just from the mech design. Every part is officially designed as a left-right snap, which is kind of weird. Looking at these legs, for example, I feel like when engineers design mechanical legs, they kind of wouldn't design them to be split down the middle, right? But since that's how they designed it, I'll respect it, mostly just so I can do less work. There are only 3 main seam lines. One's on the waist. To be honest, no one's ever gonna notice this. One on the weapon, but that's pretty much expected, and one on the knee joints. I'm planning on color separating the knee joints, so this one's gonna be important for me to deal with. The only area that needs filling is under the feet. Honestly, couldn't say the same with other G-Witch kits, and this is why I think the Darilbalde was designed better than the other ones. The only real issue here is the color separation. The kit gives a lot of good separations already, but there are a lot of these recessed areas that would look way better painted in. For all the glowy details, the kit wants to deal with it with this giant sheet of stickers, which, isn't even UV reactive, so I'm probably not gonna be using these. It's really funny that the whole holographic clear parts thing was a huge marketing point for Bandai originally for these Witch from Mercury kits, and somehow after the aerial they just kind of dropped that entirely, it seems. All in all, if you're a beginner painter and you don't mind using some of the stickers, I would highly recommend this kit since it's pretty straightforward. After that full LED Dom build, I needed a bit of a palette cleanser, so I'll be pretty minimal with this build. My goal here is just fixing all the issues, deepening all panel lines, and doing all the color separations the kit offers us. Starting from the bottom of the feet, standard procedure, I'm filling these up with epoxy putty and scribing some basic details in. The back of the feet had these fins with mold lines on them that actually kind of look pretty good, so I scribed similar details back in after I sent these down. This kit has a lot of these raised blocks with recessed corners. It's really important to go over all these lines with a chisel so you can pen align them later. I'm using a needle chisel here from MatWorks. The tip is super thin, making this perfect for deepening existing lines. As long as you only apply a little bit of pressure, it'll just follow the existing groove. This is the type of thing that might seem like a waste of time, but it really separates a skilled builder from a beginner, since you'll be able to have way cleaner panel lines. Another thing I really like about this kit is that, since spiritually this is a Xeon kit, so it's got a bunch of round surfaces, which you can easily deal with just with a simple sanding sponge. So for beginner builders, I think, doing curved surfaces with a sanding sponge just allows for, a lot more error than flat, straight surfaces from a Gundam kit. After that, let's prime and check for errors. You should technically be doing this to every kit, which I almost never do because I'm too lazy and regret massively while painting a kit later to see that, I missed out on a gate, I messed up on the panel line, stuff like that. This kit looks so good primed that I almost wanted to keep it as is, but we have to move forward here. After priming, I was able to notice that I had a few fuzzy panel lines from rescribing, as well as a couple of gates that needed to be reworked. It's just a good habit overall to have, which again, I almost never do properly. The Darilbalde was an experimental unit that only saw 3 combats in total, so I'm not planning on weathering this kit. I'm also going to paint bits of metallic details and keep them glossy, so we'll start with that. Some people like to paint all joints in metallic colors. I kind of think that it can be a little much. I tend to only do a small portion of joints in metallic. I think that makes the kit pop a lot more. After that, the main colors of the kit. I'm using my usual vibrant shading technique here. For the red, I'm using a wine red as a base. The main color here is Herman Red from Mr. Color. Highlight is the same red with a little bit of white, and at the end I'm tying it all back with the main color. For the body and joints, it's kind of hard to explain my specific color mixes. It's kind of a wooden, wine red, black colorish mix. Some of y'all have been asking me about my color mixing recipes, and I always have a hard time telling you guys since I don't really keep track of any of my color mixes. In fact, a lot of the times, including this one here, I start from pouring similar leftover paints together and adjusting with primary colors at the end to get the right tone. So there really isn't a specific recipe. Like, if I were to recreate this color after I go through what I mixed here, I actually wouldn't even be able to. So now let's talk about filling in recessed details. It would be crazy to actually mask all these parts, so we'll be using a wiping technique. There are basically 3 main types of paints we use for spray painting. So lacquer, which is the paint that I usually use, including Mr. Color and Gaia paints. Acrylic, which is the least toxic kind, but the hardest to spray because it has the largest particles. Great for hand painting though, including Vallejo and Citadel paints. And enamel, basically oil paint, usually used as a wash or for panel lining. The panel line fluid is basically enamel. So these three paints are all thinned by different solutions, which means if you put one paint's solution on another type of paint, it wouldn't actually dissolve that paint. Since I use lacquer for all the main colors, I can just spray some enamel paint on these recessed details, then use an enamel thinner to wipe the excess paint off. In my case, I'm using mineral spirits. This way, only the recessed parts will have paint in them. If you want to use this technique, I would highly recommend testing the paints first prior to actually doing this on the kit, since sometimes you can't really trust these labels. Tester paints, for example, claim to be enamel, but their thinner definitely dissolves lacquer paint. I had to learn that the hard way. This is when I decided that I wasn't gonna use the stickers. This honestly probably would have been way easier if I painted these in the beginning, but with the wiping technique, it's still pretty easy. I painted these areas first with the fluorescent green acrylic paint, then I wiped off the excess. These details are just simple thin lines. Using this tape cutting board, I can get very thin, consistent lines very easily. For decals, I'm using an official sheet from Bandai. There is a debate on decal quality from different brands. Some people say that the official Bandai decals are too hard, rigid, and difficult to apply. But honestly, I can't even tell. To me, all the reputable brands release pretty good stuff. I feel like you just gotta be careful. Of course, that's easier said than done. Lastly, the matte top coat. I masked the metallic details for this step to keep them shiny. Alright, that's about it for this kit. Didn't do anything fancy this time, just completed the kit as is while filling in as many details as possible. Putting in additional details is impressive and fun, but sometimes just straight building a kit can already look great. So if you haven't started with painting yet, don't be afraid, just jump head in first if you want to. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys next time.